and welcome to Stripped Music Diary. It's still me, Shannon. I just changed my hair, so in case you were wondering, it is still me. And I'm here inside of my house today because I tried to go somewhere to record this week's video, but it's incredibly hot and I just couldn't do that because it's 95 degrees out and the feels like temperature is 107 and the Florida humidity is a killer also. So this week I'm doing a little something different. I went and saw the band Refused the other night in Orlando at the Beacham, and that was June 9th, but last Thursday. So I wrote a review out on my computer here and I wanted to read it to you. I'm not so good at off the top of my head music reviews, so I just wanted to say that in the light of some of the events that have happened the 2 nights after I was there, I did add a little bit of an intro. I will go ahead and read you what I wrote here, as well as my review of the Refused show at the Beacham. The band Plague Vendor opened. They played first, and the Coathangers played second. Then the Refused went on at 10:45 p.m. They ended around midnight. It was an excellent show. I met them, super nice dudes also, and I'll go ahead and read you here what I have. So, in the wake of a tragedy, we sometimes find ourselves doing a bit of self-reflecting. This is oftentimes coupled with the somber reality check of our own mortality. This rings especially true if the tragedy hits closer to home, such as with the recent events transpiring in my home state of Florida in the music, club, and subculture scenes. It's extremely unsettling to have something like this shooter of singer Christina Grimmie and the mass shooting that took place last night at gay club Pulse happen in the first place. But when these horrible things take place at locations that someone who may feel isolated or misunderstood in their day-to-day life goes to seek refuge, sanctuaries for like-minded individuals to convene, it makes it much more difficult to swallow. To anyone who may think these are just rock clubs or just gay bars, I'd like to take a moment to explain how the importance of clubs may be immensely profound. As an introverted music nerd growing up, I'd go to a show where everyone else in the room was there for the same reason as me. They loved that band, that album, that song. It was our soundtrack and autobiography. We'd all felt like weirdos at school or at our jobs during the day. We'd go to these shows at night and it was as if the whole room was giving you a hug. A giant warm blanket of acceptance. If you're into a subculture, not just music, chances are you've seen an article or something someone has said about how that subculture saved their life. So people losing their lives in the very same places they feel safe and accepted and free to be themselves makes it all that much more deeply harrowing. 3 nights ago, on June 9th, 2016, I was in downtown Orlando, Florida to see one of the greatest conceptual punk bands to have ever formed, The Refused. The show included a wide array of attendees ranging in ages and gender, and judging from band t-shirts and attire, also varying pretty drastically in musical interest backgrounds. But we were all there to see this band who pioneered an entirely new sound over 20 years ago, a band who'd come back from a hiatus ready to reclaim some shit. A band who'd come all the way from Sweden to play anti-capitalism songs for disaffected Americans. A band who made it through their entire U.S. tour and was here in Orlando playing the last show of that tour. It was almost everyone here's first time seeing Refused, since the last time they were here was around 1998, and they played at a tiny cafe, according to the singer Dennis Lyxzén. Sorry if I mispronounced his last name, by the way. I don't know how it's pronounced, who claimed he changed behind the drum set on stage and proceeded to ask us if anyone was there and if anyone remembers his dick. We walked in just as the Coathangers were finishing their set, a punk band made up of 3 ladies hailing from Atlanta, Georgia. California Epitaph Records band Plague Vendor had gone on first. We make our way to the very center of the floor, where we quickly became aware that when Refuse took the stage, we were in the exact location a pit was likely to break out in. We look around for anyone who looked like they were ready to start some shit. We were surrounded. Opting to stay where we were, at least for the time being, about 10 minutes before the band took the stage, the house music gave way to a feedback sort of droning sound that seemed to only heighten the weird anxiety energy in the room. I don't mean any disrespect in saying that at the time there was a tension in the air that felt exciting yet dangerous. I just mean dangerous in the way old hardcore shows felt. Like the time I saw Modern Life is War in Boston, and when the show ended, I saw no less than 6 people with bloody faces, and I'd been kicked in the ear so hard it was difficult to hear anything for a day. So needless to say, once the opening chords of Elektra started, we found ourselves as part of the outside ring of the pit, and someone started a fist fight and got kicked out by security during the first or second song. Singer Dennis Like-Zin made a point to point out the fight and ask, why are we fighting? And making statements about how we should let everyone dance and have a good time, which people mostly adhered to. Anyone who was pushed down or had fallen in the pit was quickly picked up by fellow concert goers, including myself. Somehow toward the end of the set, I got knocked to the floor along with 3 other people. Shout out to the guy behind me who helped me up. That being said, there were a lot of people there who had clearly brought their cocky egos with them and were being total assholes. Essentially, I had a flashback to my days of going to a lot of hardcore shows. A couple dudes were obviously there to compete with one another for toughest guy in the room. There were times I forgot I wasn't at a terror show circa 2003. Refuse's set list was a wide sampling of the band's decade-spanning discography. Old school fans could revel in Refuse's party program off the groundbreaking Shape of Punk to Come. Hardcore kids could spin kick to the breakdowns. Artsier attendees could appreciate the schizophrenic electronic cutouts. And of course, there was also a generous helping of newer songs off last year's album Freedom. For me, the crowning jewels of the night were during Rather Be Dead, where Dennis Like-Zin Jesus walked over the crowd's hands, and getting to see Worms of the Senses, Faculties of the Skull live and yell, "Let's take the first bus out of here." Dennis Like-Zin is an impeccable frontman with moves reminiscent of Mick Jagger and a wardrobe that hints at 70s David Bowie. He swung the mic expertly, Rockstar jumped in perfect sync to the crash of the drums, and the pelvic thrust could put Elvis's to shame. Before the show, I worried about the capacity of the venue's sound system in regard to handling the combustive ferocity that is the Refuse. I'd been to a few other shows at varying clubs where the place just couldn't handle how loud the band played, and in turn it sounded like garbage. However, the Beacham was ready and it sounded ace. Somewhere in the middle of the set, Dennis Like-Zin stopped to talk a little bit about Refuse reuniting and their stance as a political band. They denounced Donald Trump, explaining as Swedes they care about what the U.S. is doing because what the U.S. does affects everybody. They made eloquent statements about women and society and how it's sickening that women are randomly grouped and objectified, and stated, "We need to do better as men." They played 14 songs and then 3 more encore songs, closing with New Noise and then Tannhauser Derive. Needless to say, they did not disappoint. After the show, we walked out back, hoping the band would be back there and we could go say hi. Normally, if we wait a while, it's not an issue and we get to meet whichever band we waited for. However, there was a fan meet and greet that was an extra charge in addition to the ticket price, so we weren't sure if they'd be about talking to other fans who didn't opt for the meet and greet package. We were not let down, and the whole band came out, was just standing by the fence. We went over, talked a few, and took a photo, and we asked them to sign a few records for us. I'm annoyed with myself because I was nervous and totally forgot to tell Dennis Like-Zin how much I loved one of his old bands, the International Noise Conspiracy, and how I wanted to go see them in Tampa sometime around 2001 on Thanksgiving, but I didn't end up going. Either way, they were super nice, and we didn't want to take up too much of their time, so we said goodbye to the band and left the fence we'd met so many other bands before and got into the car for the 108-mile trip back to St. Pete. The next night, Christina Grimmie was gunned down signing autographs after her show across town at the Plaza Live. The night after that, at least 50 people lost their lives less than 2 miles from where I was 2 nights before. So, having gone to a show or right before something so awful has happened, I just felt like I should say something about it. As a music fan, as someone who enjoys subculture, and just be careful when you're at shows and clubs. It's obviously something that we can't take lightly. After the Eagles of Death Metal show in Paris, and now, here, the things that are happening on our own soil, we just have to be really aware and really careful when we're at shows. So thanks so much for watching. Next video I'm doing is going to be either reviewing the Kills record or a video on some new stuff I've been listening to. So look out for that, probably Friday. And don't forget to subscribe. You can hit the subscribe button and it will notify you every time I post a video, so you won't miss any. And you can follow our Instagram too. I'll put the username below here. And we appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much. Bye.